Hey, this is Patrick Kapaun from Hays, Kansas. I spoke at a Catholic men's conference today, and I want to thank Bishop Jerry Vinke of the Diocese of Salinas, Kansas, for having this live event. Men really are hungry for God and the things of God, and it was so great to get together in one place live with all the proper social distancing to share about the standard of the gospel without compromise. Such a great balance we have in the Catholic faith between masculinity and femininity. On the one hand, we have an all-male priesthood and always will. We have God the Father. We have Jesus Christ, the God-man, the divine bridegroom. On the other hand, we have the perfect feminine. We have the Blessed Virgin Mary. We have the Church as mother. And I was thinking about the intercessory power of forgiveness when forgiveness is attached to prayer. Forgiveness is a kind of fasting, if you think about it. We're going against our natures when we forgive. And Jesus offers us a standard that's humanly impossible, but divinely necessary. Inside Coffin Nation, this month's expert guest is Jess Echeverry, and she waxed eloquent in that session on her own unbelievably bad background, from divorced parents to alcoholism to homelessness, same-sex attraction, sexual abuse, rape, abortion, and it's all shot through with the grace of God through the human act with the divine assistance of forgiveness. And a really great example of that we celebrated 2 days ago with the feast of Maximilian Kolbe, the great Franciscan Marian saint of the Auschwitz concentration camp, who died after volunteering his own life to save a man named Francis Krajoniczek, who had 9 kids. Someone had tried to escape from the camp, and the leader of that section of the camp, Colonel Fritsch, allowed Father Kolbe to stand in for one of the men who cried out, "My wife and my children." So someone tried to escape the camp, and so the policy was to kill 10 men as punishment. They cremated Father Kolbe's body the next day, so we don't have full relics of St. Maximilian Kolbe. But we do have a relic thanks to a far-sighted barber who kept a snippet of his hair because he thought there was a good chance this was a future saint in the making. So the end of that anecdote about the August 14th solemnity of his death is that after the war, the main commandant of Auschwitz, Rudolf Hess, that's H-O-E-S-S, not the Rudolf Hess who was Hitler's personal secretary, that's H-E-S-S. But the commandant of Auschwitz, Rudolf Hess, was finally found and put on trial for crimes against particularly the Polish people. And Hess was a Catholic. He was raised by a fanatically Catholic father who was very rules-based and strict to an absurd degree. And he left his faith, obviously, and became just a stone-cold killer. They called him the animal. And when British troops finally found him, they set his date of execution for April 2nd, 1947. Before he went to his maker, he had a change of heart and repented and asked for a priest to go to confession. Well, this created a problem because no one wanted to go to the camp to hear this guy's confession because he was infamous as the animal. So they searched for over a month for a priest who would come and hear the man's confession. Finally, they went to Wadowice, nearby town in Poland, which is the birthplace of St. John Paul II, as you might know if the name sounds familiar. And they found a priest there, a Jesuit of the old school, Father Vladislav Lone. He came, and he heard a mighty long confession. The next day, he returned to the camp, and there in the middle of his cell, on his knees, sobbing like a child, he gave Rudolf Hess his viaticum, his last Holy Communion. It's not believed that the commandant had heard of Father Kolbe, but I think there's a hovering near 100% chance that Kolbe's sacrifice and his heroic virtues, especially with regard to forgiveness, is one of the singular graces that converted the commandant of the entire camp, Rudolf Hess. Of course, we'll never know this side of heaven. But these stories behind stories are always fascinating to me, and it's hard to find them. So I'll put a link there to a pretty good comprehensive review of that story of the commandant converting at the very last weeks of his life. I love being here in Kansas. As you can see from my shirt, I'm a spiritual son of Father Emil Kapaun, the servant of God, soon to be venerable, I understand. His canonization cause is moving nicely in Rome. He was a prisoner of war during the Korean War, an army chaplain who eschewed 2 attempts to escape with his life. He wanted to stay with his men. And I had the unmerited privilege of interviewing Colonel Mike Dow, one of the 4 men who carried Father Kapaun to what they euphemistically called the hospital. There are saints among us, brothers and sisters. And the reason you and I are not saints now is that we don't will it. So I recommend the book, The Miracle of Father Kapaun, by Travis Hying and Roy Wenzel. I'll put the link below as well. One of the interesting things about being on the road is I get some time alone to crank through writing projects. I'm writing a book for Sophia Institute Press now on the isms, the ideologies that are endangering the church and the world. And I also get to catch up on some movies. If I have a couple of hours and I've got my work done, I watched Guys and Dolls last night. And my only observation, apart from the stilted Damon Runyon script where everybody's talking without contractions, is that I thought Marlon Brando should have won an Academy Award for pretending to be attracted to a woman, Gene Simmons in this case. Happy feast of the Solemnity of the Bodily Assumption of the Blessed Virgin Mary. And another pointer toward the balance that is at the center of Catholicism is that Mary, and not any male, is the highest human being in history, according to the Catholic Church. The most perfect human person, the Mother of God, who after she died was assumed into heaven, body and soul. Not just her soul beholding the beatific vision, but body and soul. So she's enjoying now what you and I are striving for and will get if we persevere in grace. Check out coffinnation.com. Love to have you on the inside. In the meantime, be a saint. What else is there?